Newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Sean Yao. This week, Maynilad customers will have to endure water service interruptions. About 600,000 people will be without or little water supply from 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. or 6 a.m. beginning Wednesday, July 12. Barangays affected are those in Caloocan, Malabon, Manila, Navotas, Quezon City, and Valenzuela. The interruptions are brought about by the first round of water allocation reductions from the Angat Dam. But the MWSS assures that they are tapping other water sources.
Right now, the augmentation measures are already on place. So we are already implementing or operating the modular water treatment plants for those. We are getting water from the rivers within the Metro Manila.
For its part, Maynilad will generate more water from its various augmentation projects. What this means is that the duration of water service interruptions scheduled for this week could be shorter than projected, or in a best-case scenario, may not be felt immediately. The West Zone concessionaire is also warning consumers against storing too much water.
Kaya po ang ginagawa po namin para mas least lang po yung magiging inconvenience to sa ating mga customer. Hanggat maaari, lagay na lang natin sa gabi yung interruption.
And as early as now, households and businesses in Metro Manila are already preparing for the worst. Brian Basa tells us why.
Almost 600,000 households in Metro Manila are bracing for waterless days. West Zone concessionaire Maynilad will begin interrupting water supply for up to 9 hours daily beginning July 12th. In Manila, this eatery is now storing water just in case.
Pagdating ng close namin ng alas 8 hanggang gabi na mag-ipon na kami yan. Para kinabukasan may magamit na kami tubig.
This car wash is keeping these huge water drums full, each one catering to 3 vehicles. But if these aren't enough, they will be forced to close early.
Kailangan natin magtipid. Tipid na ng tubig. Magbawas tayo ng paghuhugas.
Environment officials have called on barangays to conserve water. Meanwhile, Senator Grace Poe is questioning Maynilad's water interruption. Poe finds it unacceptable considering its longer hours and more households being affected. She adds Maynilad should have invested on facilities instead of relying on rainfall. Poe is also calling on MWSS to act on Maynilad's recurring supply cuts. For her, the agency should be proactive and not just be a bearer of bad news to consumers. For News 5, I'm Brian Basa and we are One News.
The government is confident that El Nino will not affect the country's food supply and economy, at least for this year. Socio-Economic Planning Undersecretary Rosemarie Edelion noted that local farmers have finished irrigating their farms. What this means is that they will just have to wait for harvest. Nevertheless, Edelion warned against complacency, saying that everyone should prepare for the impact of the drought. El Nino is expected to persist until the first half of 2024.
Yung brunt talaga ng El Nino, we expect it to happen by beginning of next year. Kaya lang, yung preparasyon para doon, kailangan ngayon nagsisimula na. Kung halimbawa may prepare natin ng maayos, hindi kami nakakakita ng malaking negative impact dito sa inflation or sa economy.
We have more stories for you after this quick break. Stay with us here on One News. You're back on One News Now. I'm Sean Yao. The Finance Department welcomed the push for 5 fiscal and economic reforms by LEDAC, or the Legislative Executive Development Advisory Council. Among the measures now on the legislative agenda this year are the Public-Private Partnerships Bill, the Ease of Paying Taxes Bill, and the Automatic Income Classification of Local Government Units. Also up for approval are reforms in real property assessment, as well as the framework for military and uniformed personnel pension reform. Finance Secretary Ben Diokno also believes that imposing value-added taxes on digital transactions will help with the government's revenue collection.
Ang rational nun is fairness. Kasi kung binili mo sa regular store, meron kang tax. Pag binili mo sa online, wala kang tax. Di ba? Hindi naman fair yun, di ba? In the first place, sino nakakabili sa online? Siguro yung mga nakakahanap ng konti sa buhay.
Secretary Diokno also believes that the Philippine government's debt is still, quote, manageable. The government debt ballooned to 14.1 trillion pesos in May. Diokno explains that the debt to GDP ratio is at a manageable level of 60.9%, which means there is still room for borrowing.
Now, let me reiterate that the correct metric in looking at the public debt is not the absolute level of debt. Rather, it is the public debt as a percent of GDP. It also matters how the debt is used. It makes a lot of difference if the debt is used for public capital investment and productivity-enhancing measures rather than government consumption. For example, higher salaries for public sector workers.
Moving on to other news, Senator Nancy Binay lauds Cebu Pacific's actions following the flurry of complaints against the low-cost carrier. Binay thanked the airline for heeding the call of passengers as it removed the expiration date of its travel fund and extended the validity of its travel vouchers to 18 months starting August 1. The senator also noted how SEBPAC now has clearer guidelines on the compensation for flight disruptions. Binay is the chairman of the Senate Tourism Committee, which led the inquiry on passenger complaints against airlines last month. Let's now take a quick look at today's other top stories. The Department of Foreign Affairs is urging Filipinos in Sudan to come home amid the escalation of tension there between the army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. DFA Undersecretary Eduardo de Vega says over 700 Filipinos have been repatriated since April, but some have chosen to stay in the country. There are 30 overseas Filipino workers now awaiting rescue in Sudan. The Bureau of Immigration will be looking into a case of a passenger who was offloaded on her way to Taiwan after failing to present 10 birth certificates of her ancestors. The BI noted that the passenger claimed she is traveling to Taiwan to visit a distant relative, yet also mentioned possibly working there. Because of several inconsistencies, the traveler was not allowed to board her flight. And the Valenzuela to Quirino Highway portion of the Metro Manila subway project is now 11% complete. The 2 stations are expected to be finished by December 2023 or January of next year. The entire subway system is expected to be fully operational by 2029. One News Now will be back at 6 p.m. with the day's latest stories. I'm Sean Yao. We are One News.